Hey there, folks. Welcome to Advisory. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are all doing well. Today, we are going to continue our conversation about credit, how it works, what to look out for, and especially today, we're going to be talking about what borrowing money through credit cards or loans really costs us. It can be really easy when it comes to credit cards or loans to lose track of the fact that it's not really our money, that we are borrowing money and we'll have to pay it back plus interest. And a lot of the times that interest can get out of control if we're not responsible by paying it back on time or paying back enough in the time that is allotted. So, once again, we're going to hear from this kooky fella about how interest works in a loan and on credit cards and how it can really get out of control. And then after that, you're going to play a very fun video game. That's right, a video game in advisory. So, pay attention to this video and I'll explain the game afterwards.
By now, you've probably figured out that if anyone just offers you some money, there's got to be some strings attached. Especially in the world of finance, there is no such thing as free money. And there's no better example of this than with credit, be it with a loan or a credit card. A lot of people seem to think that these are free money, but they are far from it. Credit can get expensive. Like, really expensive. Okay, stop it, we get it. Ugh. I should not have bought all those books with my credit card. The amount of credit debt that you can rack up can get really stressful, especially if you just don't see it coming. So in this video, we're gonna go over why the true cost of borrowing money is so expensive. And we'll look at some examples of just how high loan and credit card debt can get. Let's get into it. There are a few key factors we have to look at whenever we want to talk about the true cost of borrowing money. These factors are the principal, the interest rate, the term length, and any additional fees. Whenever you apply for a loan, you'll usually know how much money you need. For example, you might need $300,000 to buy a house, or $25,000 to buy a car, or maybe $6,000 to buy an engagement ring. This initial amount of money that you're asking to borrow is what's known as the principal. The principal can seem like the scariest part of the loan, but that's actually the lowest amount you'll have to pay. The reason for this is because of the interest that accrues once you borrow the money. Now, if you remember from a previous lesson, interest rates can get pretty complicated. So trying to figure out the differences between two different loans' interest rates can be a total nightmare. But luckily, there is a trick this time. Whenever you're going loan shopping, look for the acronym APR. This stands for Annual Percentage Rate, and it's a simple measure of how much interest will accrue over the course of 1 year. So for example, if a loan says, hey, this loan has 8% APR, then you know that the loan will accrue 8% interest every year. It's that simple. You don't need to figure out what kind of interest it is or how frequently it accrues. The interest rate itself will be determined by your credit worthiness and especially your credit score. Once again, the better your credit score, the lower your interest rates will be. Of course, talking about a yearly interest rate doesn't really mean much if we don't know the term length or the amount of time we are given to fully repay the loan. Term lengths for loans can vary wildly from 1 to 2 months for the smaller personal loans to 30 years plus for the massive ones like home loans. But generally they'll fall somewhere in the middle. Car loans, for instance, are typically 5 to 6 years, and the term lengths for student loans are usually between 10 and 20 years. But don't forget that awesome tip we gave you. Pay more than the minimum amount whenever you can. This lets you get ahead of the interest rate and pay the loan off earlier. If you could pay off a 20-year loan in just 18 years, that's still 2 whole years worth of interest that you just don't have to pay. Of course, you should make sure that there's no fee for paying the loan back early. Yeah, there are a lot of additional fees when it comes to loans. Some loans will even have fees for applying for them. And of course, many loans have fees for late payments. Make sure you always read the fine print of any loan contract. So, why is it so important to know all this anyway? Well, because a $30,000 car loan with a 7.2% APR and a 6-year term isn't just going to cost you $30,000. The true cost of that loan will be about $37,000. And that's with no additional fees. You make a couple late payments, and now you're looking at another $1,000 on top of that. But that's only if you're making the minimum payments, about $515 per month, and if you take the full 6 years to pay it off. If you made $600 payments instead, you'd pay the loan off 6 months early, saving yourself about $1,200 in interest. The true cost of a credit card is a bit trickier to pin down. After all, we're not borrowing one large principal, we're borrowing multiple smaller amounts of money at different times. Each charge is added to your balance, and then interest is accrued on the entire balance at the end of the billing cycle. But how do you charge interest when the balance keeps changing? Well, that's simple. It doesn't matter when you borrowed the money. What matters is how much balance you haven't paid back yet at the start of the next billing cycle. That's why one of the biggest tips for credit card ownership is to always pay off all your charges as soon as you can. This lets you stay ahead of the interest rate. If you pay off your whole balance, no balance means no interest accrues. And trust me, that's what you're going to want to have happen. Credit cards have really high interest rates. Like, we're talking 20 to 25% APR. I mean, sure, a good credit score will give you a lower interest rate, but low for a credit card is still super high for pretty much anything else. Like, imagine if you got 20% return on an investment. Always pay off your charges so that you can avoid the super high interest rates. Here's a question though. How can you set a term length on a credit card when you don't know when you're going to borrow more money? Well, actually, that's a very good point. Credit cards don't have specific term lengths, but there are still some important timelines that you're going to want to keep an eye on. Of course, there's that monthly billing cycle, so make sure that you're paying off your charges before that ends. Also, some credit cards come with a no interest rate period for the first 6 to 21 months of you owning the card, so pay attention to when that ends. Of course, you're still going to want to pay off your full balance, because if you let yourself get a big balance and then the no interest rate period ends, then the interest is going to start accruing very quickly. And finally, we have to talk about the fees. Credit card companies make big money off of fees. There's fees for late payments, fees for using the credit card in a foreign country. Heck, there's even an annual fee just for keeping the credit line open. Just like with loans, make sure you read every detail of a credit card contract so that you know exactly what you're paying for. So, just how expensive can the honest, true cost of borrowing money with a credit card really be? Well, if you always pay your balance off each month, then it shouldn't be more expensive than paying with cash or a debit card. Plus, you might get some free rewards too. But if you don't pay off your bill in full and you let your balance build up, then things can get out of hand very quickly. Here's an example. Say you charge $500 worth of food to your credit card in 1 month, and at the end of the month, you pay half of it back, $250. Then next month, you do the same thing, $500 on food on the credit card, pay $250 of it back. Say you do this every month for a full year. Now, you might expect to owe $3,000 by the end of it. That's $250 a month for 12 months. But once you take into account all the extra fees and that big interest rate, you will owe almost an additional $300 on top of that. And that balance will keep growing and growing, the interest raising and raising year after year until you finally decide to pay the complete balance off. So, as you can see, credit cards and loans can be great financial tools, but they can also be dangerous if you don't know how to use them responsibly. Thankfully, after all the tips and lessons you learned in this unit, you are now more than prepared to use these tools responsibly.
So some of the stuff he was talking about is pretty concerning, right? Especially when we're talking about things that can get out of control quickly when it comes to especially credit cards. But to drive this point home, we are going to play a little game. And this is going to be on either a computer or your phone. And the instructions are on the next slide, but you'll go to playcatinsanity.com. That's the website, playcatinsanity.com. And this is what it looks like. And again, you can play this on your phone as well if you don't have computers in the room. You will select your cats out of these choices. And it gives some specs about what each cat has. You're going to be feeding these cats, and so you want to look at how much food is required and how much they multiply, which is 20% a day for this cat. And so I'm going to click begin. At first, the task is pretty easy. You're just feeding like a couple of cats at a time, and you've got a full day to do it. Plenty of scoops. Kind of like the beginning of paying back a loan or a credit card. That's right, I'm doing pretty good. Take that, cats. You're fed. No hungry cats and no dead cats, because if you don't feed them, they die. And that's easy enough, but then towards the end, it gets a little bit more intense. Oh, no, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. All the cats are gonna get fed, all the cats. I've got so many cats, I can feed them all, I don't know, I'm running out of time. No! And then at the end, it gives you a little readout of what each of the elements of the game represents as far as credit is concerned. So you can look through these things and then answer the discussion questions with the rest of your class once people have played. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you enjoy that discussion. Have a great weekend. We've got one more week of classes, and so get some rest this weekend, and we'll finish strong over the next couple of weeks. Be good to yourself and others, and I'll see you on Monday.